my son's wife told me I wasn't welcome at their anniversary party in the house I own. So I decided to remind them whose home it really is. I had always taken pride in my home. Every room held memories, warm family gatherings, the smell of home-cooked meals I used to prepare for my son when he was little. I remembered him taking his first steps on the wooden floor of the living room, learning to ride his bike in the backyard, the barbecues we hosted with friends and relatives. This house wasn't just a place to live, it was a part of me. That's why, when my son and his wife decided to host their anniversary party at my home, I didn't hesitate to say yes. It felt natural. My son had grown up here, why wouldn't he want to celebrate an important milestone in a place filled with love and familiarity? From the moment they announced their plans, I was eager to help. I made sure the house was spotless, arranged for extra seating, and even ordered catering so no one had to worry about cooking. I imagined the laughter, the clinking of glasses, the warm glow of candles illuminating the faces of people who mattered most. But then, the night before the party, my daughter-in-law called. Her voice was calm, too calm. "We've made a small change to the guest list," she said. "We're keeping it just between friends." I frowned, shifting the phone in my hand. "All right," I said slowly, "but what about family?" There was a pause. "Well," she hesitated, as if carefully choosing her words. "We just want a certain vibe, you know? A more relaxed atmosphere." I still didn't understand. "And what does that mean?" Another pause. A heavier one. "We were thinking, maybe you could sit this one out." For a moment, I thought I'd misheard. "Sit this one out?" I repeated. "Yes." "It's nothing personal," she rushed to add, though her tone suggested otherwise. "It's just that, well, it would be more fun for everyone if it was just our friends." My fingers tightened around the phone. "But this is my home." "I know," she said quickly, as if she had prepared for this exact response. "And we're really grateful. It's just, well, we already sent out the invites, and it might be awkward to change things now." I waited for my son to speak, to intervene, to say anything at all. But I heard nothing in the background. No protest. No hesitation. Just silence. I took a breath. "I see. Thank you for understanding," she said, her voice lighter now, relieved. "We'll take good care of everything. You don't have to worry about a thing." Then she hung up. I sat there, staring at the phone in my hand, feeling an unfamiliar heaviness settle in my chest. I had agreed to host the party. I had prepared for it. But now, in my own home, I wasn't even welcome. And worst of all, my son had let it happen. I barely slept that night. My mind kept replaying the conversation with my daughter-in-law, analyzing every word, every pause. How had it come to this? How had I become an outsider in my own home? The next morning, I tried to push the thoughts away. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe my son would call, tell me there had been a misunderstanding. But the hours passed, and my phone remained silent. By the afternoon, I had made a decision. If they didn't want me at the party, fine. I would give them their space. I grabbed my coat and stepped outside, deciding to take a walk. It was a crisp autumn day, the kind where the air smelled of fallen leaves and distant fireplaces. I told myself it was better this way. But as I walked through the neighborhood, I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. This house had been my sanctuary for decades, a place where my son had always been welcome. Now, I was being pushed out like an unwanted guest. I wandered for hours, trying to clear my head. When I finally returned home, the sun was already beginning to set. That's when I heard it, the distant hum of music, the chatter of voices drifting from inside. The party had started. I stood outside for a moment, staring at the warmly lit windows, shadows moving inside. My house was alive with laughter, with celebration. And yet, I wasn't a part of it. Something inside me snapped. I had given them space. I had let them have their night. But this was still my home. And I was done feeling like a stranger in it. I reached for the door handle and stepped inside. As I stepped inside, the warmth of the house immediately contrasted with the cold anger simmering inside me. The scent of expensive catering filled the air: garlic butter, roasted meat, freshly baked bread. My home, which had always smelled like my cooking, now smelled like a stranger's. Laughter rang from the living room. Glasses clinked. Voices overlapped in lively conversation. And not a single person noticed me standing in the doorway. I took a slow breath and walked further inside. The living room was packed. Strangers lounged on my couch, their shoes propped on my coffee table. A couple stood by the fireplace, sipping wine, oblivious to the fact that it was I who had built that mantelpiece with my own hands years ago. And there, at the center of it all, was my son. He sat comfortably among his friends, laughing at some joke I hadn't heard, his arm draped lazily around his wife's shoulders. He looked at ease, like he belonged. Like he had no reason to think twice about where I was, what I was feeling. The sight of it stung more than I expected. I cleared my throat. Loudly. The chatter faltered. A few guests turned toward me, their smiles fading into confusion. My son's laughter died mid-sentence as his gaze met mine. His expression shifted, first surprise, then guilt. And then, my daughter-in-law spoke. "Oh," she said, forcing a polite smile. "I didn't think you'd be home yet." Home? As if this wasn't my home. I folded my arms. Where else would I be? A tense silence settled over the room. Guests exchanged awkward glances, sensing something was off. My son stood up, rubbing the back of his neck. "Dad, maybe we should talk." I held up a hand, stopping him. "No need. I'll make this simple." I turned to face the room. "I don't know most of you," I said, my voice steady but firm. "And that's fine. I agreed to let my son and his wife have their party here. What I didn't agree to was being pushed out of my own home while it happened." A few murmurs rippled through the crowd. My daughter-in-law shifted uncomfortably, her smile growing tight. "We didn't mean it that way, we just—" "But you did," I interrupted. "You made it clear I wasn't welcome. So now, I'm returning the favor." I took a step forward and pointed at the door. "The party is over. Everyone out." Gasps filled the room. A few guests looked at my son, expecting him to intervene. But he just stood there, his jaw clenched, his eyes filled with something I couldn't quite read: shame, regret, or maybe just shock. My daughter-in-law scoffed, folding her arms. "You're being dramatic." "No," I said simply. "I'm taking my house back." And with that, I waited. For a long moment, no one moved. The weight of my words hung thick in the air, pressing down on the room like a storm cloud about to burst. I stood firm, my expression unreadable, my heart hammering in my chest. Would they argue? Would my own son stand against me? A few guests glanced at each other, uncertain. The music still played softly in the background, the clinking of glasses now feeling strangely out of place. Then, one of the guests, a young woman in a sleek black dress, cleared her throat and set her drink down. "Well, this is awkward," she muttered under her breath before grabbing her coat. That was all it took. One by one, the guests began to move, collecting their things, murmuring polite goodbyes. Some cast uneasy glances at my son, as if expecting him to say something, but he didn't. He just stood there, shoulders tense, jaw tight. My daughter-in-law, on the other hand, looked furious. "You can't be serious," she snapped, stepping toward me. "This is humiliating. You're throwing everyone out just because your ego is bruised?" I met her glare without flinching. "No, I'm throwing everyone out because I refuse to be disrespected in my own home." She let out a sharp laugh, shaking her head. "Unbelievable." She turned to my son. "Are you really going to let him do this?" He hesitated. I could see the war in his eyes, the tug-of-war between his wife and his father. And for a brief second, I thought maybe, just maybe, he would stand up for me. But then he sighed and muttered, "Let's just go." His wife gaped at him. "What?" He wouldn't meet my gaze. It's his house. For all the anger simmering inside me, those words still cut deep. He wasn't fighting for me. He was just giving up. Walking away, like it wasn't a big deal. Like this wasn't a betrayal. My daughter-in-law scoffed, shaking her head in disgust. Fine. Whatever. She grabbed her purse and stormed toward the door, shoving past the last few guests who were trickling out. And just like that, the house was empty again. The silence felt almost deafening after all the noise and laughter from before. I stood there, staring at the closed door, letting it all sink in. Then, I turned to my son. He was still standing there, hands in his pockets, staring at the floor like a child caught misbehaving. "You let this happen," I said quietly. His shoulders tensed. "Dad." "No," I shook my head. "You let her turn me into a stranger in my own home. And you didn't even fight it." He finally looked up, guilt swimming in his eyes. "I didn't mean for it to." "Doesn't matter what you meant," I cut in. "What matters is what you did." He exhaled slowly, rubbing his face with one hand. "I should go." I didn't stop him. I watched as he walked to the door, hesitating just for a moment before stepping out into the night. And then he was gone. For the first time in a long time, I was alone in my own home. But instead of feeling lonely, I felt something else. Peace. I walked over to the fireplace, the place where so many memories had been made, and sank into my favorite chair. The silence wasn't so bad. It wasn't empty. It was mine. And for the first time in years, I realized that was enough.